Sarah Eckel, and you'll be followed by Craig Stevens.
Hi, my name is Sarah Eckel. I'm representing Citizens Campaign for the Environment. CCE is an 80,000 member nonprofit, nonpartisan advocacy organization that works to protect public health and the environment throughout New York. CCE has concerns about the process DEC is using to solicit public testimony. Essentially, by combining the public comment periods and the hearing periods for the draft SGEIS, the regulations, and the permit, we're triple dipping, and this is not a transparent process. We need transparency. As you can see, as you've said, this is high emotional, and we need more transparency for people to be comfortable with this. In order to look at the true impact of industrial gas drilling in New York, we need interagency cooperation. We still haven't looked at the impacts from pipelines and compressors, and in order to do that, we have to have the DEC cooperating with the PSC to look holistically at how natural gas drilling is supposed to impact New York. Additionally, there's been several calls for a public health impact assessment, and we need that assessment in order, again, to know how gas drilling will impact New York State. The SGEIS needs to look at protecting drinking water infrastructure. There are some drinking water infrastructure protections, but it's not comprehensive and it's not across the board. In order to really protect drinking water, we need to protect the infrastructure that delivers it to our communities. We need to remove the arbitrary distinction between primary and principal aquifers. There's no geological difference. The only difference is the fact the population sizes that it serves. We should be protecting all drinking water sources because this is the natural resource that is going to carry us into the future. We need a prohibition on spreading fracking waste on our roads. And we need a prohibition on sending fracking waste to our municipal treatment facilities. We know that our municipal treatment facilities in New York are not equipped to handle this. And if we're going to protect the water resources that this state is built upon, we need to prohibit that waste from going to our treatment facilities. And last thing I want to touch on is that there's no plan for waste disposal for fracking waste in New York. We can track it and we can know where it's going, but we have no plan. And in order to be able to have fracking in New York, you have to know where the waste is going. There's going to be millions of gallons of liquid and solid waste coming off of these pads, and you cannot say that it'll just be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. We have to know where it's going to go. And there has to be a real tracking process that's open to the people and is transparent. Thank you.
Thank you. Craig Stevens, you'll be followed by Ellen Harrison.
Hi, Craig Stevens, sixth-generation landowner in Silver Lake Township, Pennsylvania. Governor Cuomo and Friends of Natural Gas New York. We ask that if you don't believe our friend's endemic water is poison, why don't you come and drink it? 3.5 years is enough. We've had enough of being treated like the enemy by our own elected officials whose only job should be to protect the citizens and future generations from irreparable harm now and in the future by demonizing the victims of this industry because they are causing bad PR for them. They are ignoring the very basic rights that they swore to uphold and defend in both the federal and Pennsylvania constitutions. We've had enough of the industry acting like our friends, business partners, whom we invited here, turning neighbor against neighbor and our own community against each other. They have convinced by throwing money around some of our neighbors that they are our friends. We've had enough of telling us how rich we're going to get while paying only 12.5% royalties to landowners and keeping 87.5% of our minerals for themselves. They pay us on $3.50 per 1,000 cubic foot and turn around and sell it to liquefied to Japan, India, Russia, China, Norway, and others for $12 for the same equivalent and keep the difference between the two. We've had enough of their $125 million ad campaigns by the industry needing to sell the industry to us as America's fuel to make us energy independent and reduce our dependence on foreign energy. Do they think we're stupid enough to put up with this and abusive behavior and turn us all into a giant energy extraction colony? We've had enough of landowners who we are trying to warn and educate, who have formed coalitions to protect themselves from these billion-dollar corporations, attacking us for telling them the truth about these robber barons. Why did they need... Why did you
Please hold your applause.
Why did you need to form these groups anyway? If these companies are so honorable, what was the reason in the first place? Oh, by the way, we are the reason they're offering you thousands of dollars per acre now, when 4+ years ago they were throwing nickels around like manhole covers. The word is thank you. We've had enough of paying people off that they have damaged and forcing them to sign non-disclosure gag orders to keep the destruction they are causing from the public. If you believe in an industry that must hide their problems and not fix them so they can keep moving from state to state and causing more irreparable harm, God help us all. We've had enough of trying to convince the good citizens of the state of New York that we are not lying, so I, for one, am prepared to tap out and let you take over while we take a break from this devastation. We will watch them come into your state like a Normandy invasion, as we have had 4 years to be overtaken, but you are going to see these companies make up for lost time. When your neighbors get crushed to death by drilling mud trucks like my neighbor John Jones did on July 29, 2011, they blow out creeks in your backyard and poison your drinking water, then tell you it all existed before. How long will it take? Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ellen Harrison, and you'll be followed by Katherine Wagner.
My name is Ellen Harrison, and I'm here today representing an organization called Fleeced, which is one we started. It advocates for people who signed gas leases before it was known that shale gas exploitation destroys our land, our water, our air, and our communities. Many of us who signed leases are ashamed, but we were lied to by the landsmen who came to our door. It's time for us to stop hiding our heads and to get angry. We are here today to let the DEC and politicians and the press and the public know that many of us who signed leases are against drilling. We who have signed leases, we who have leased our lands have the most to lose if fracking goes forward in New York State. When we signed our leases, we had no idea that we could no longer get mortgages on our property. We had no idea that we violated the terms of our mortgage and that they could foreclose on us if they wanted to. When we signed leases, we had no idea that we could no longer get homeowners insurance. When we signed leases, we had no idea that we would be liable for the damages that might take place to our neighbors. When we signed leases, we had no idea that the gas company could come and take any part of our land that they wanted to. When we signed leases, we had no idea that our wells were in jeopardy. When we signed leases, we had no idea that toxic chemicals would be released into the air that we breathe. We had no idea that thousands of gallons of hazardous chemicals would be injected under our land, into our land, stored on our property. We had no idea that we'd be subjecting our neighbors to these risks or to the increased crime that comes with the itinerant population, or with the astronomical increases in rents that are being experienced where drilling takes place. We had no idea we were subjecting our communities to the higher municipal costs that are currently being borne by the municipalities. They only get tax money after the drilling has already taken place, not beforehand and not as things go forward. We are very sorry we signed, and we are angry. We have a number of specific things in the SGEIS that we think will affect us in particular. The setbacks were mentioned, the fact that there's no notification requirement when a permit application goes in. They don't have to tell me that my land is included. There's open pits for storage of wastewater. That could be on our lands and affect us. They should be outlawed. There's venting and flaring. There should be green completion requirements. There's no need to vent and flare. There should be full disclosure of chemical additives. We have a right to know. How can we test our water if we don't even know what the heck's getting in there? And there should be some kind of a full bonding and escrow accounts held.
Thank you. Katherine Wagner, and you'll be followed by Kim Jastremskii.
Okay. Kay Wagner, speaking on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Tompkins County. It is generally accepted that the only reason for moving ahead with high-volume hydraulic fracturing at this time is the prospect of economic gains. A professional, detailed, and unbiased economic and sociological analysis must be at the foundation of any decision to allow this potentially damaging activity. We believe that the study done by E&E and incorporated into the draft SGEIS needs to be completely redone. As it stands, the study by Ecology and Environment Engineering does not give an objective analysis. The most basic assumption entering the economic analysis, the estimated quantity of recoverable gas, is never explicitly stated. Positive benefits are calculated in detail and sometimes exaggerated. Some costs and negative impacts are noted but not evaluated. Negative sociological impacts, such as changes in character of local communities, are not addressed. Specifically, drilling and mining activities necessarily lead to a boom-bust economy. As steward of New York's environment, it is incumbent upon the DEC to address the question, what will be left behind when the relatively short boom is over? The DEC has not addressed the option of leaving the natural gas in the ground until a safe and dramatically less intrusive process for gas extraction can be found. The new SGEIS does not deal adequately with the issue of cumulative impact. The DEC has not considered the need to control the pace and scale of any drilling that does occur. The assumed lifetime of each well is not based on actual experience in other regions. It assumes that each well will be productive for 30 years, whereas it is reported that annual production from a shale well declines by about 50% in the first year, and gas production that is economically recoverable is uncertain beyond 5 years. The total numbers used for recoverable amounts of gas are not given up front. They may be estimated from the data in the report, and this estimation suggests an amount that is 5 times the recent USGS estimate. Jobs. The analysis by E&E mentions that initially 77% of the workers will be migrant workers from out of state. It does not take this into account in the job numbers it claims. The costs to local businesses and farms have been noted, but no quantitative estimate has been made. Other costs that have been ignored include costs to local municipalities. The study by E&E admits that home values for those close to drilling sites may decrease dramatically, but it does not investigate the limitations relating to obtaining mortgages or the exclusions from title insurance and homeowners insurance coverage on properties too close to drilling sites. Thank you.
Thank you. Kim Jastremskii, and the next speaker will be Loddie Marsh.
My name is Kim Jastremskii. I'm a mother of 2, and I'm of the 4th generation of my family to own land in the Cooperstown area. I represent the group Middlefield Neighbors, who conducted a survey that found that 84% of the town of Middlefield voters were opposed to drilling and only 6% for. My comment is on Section 9, the prohibition of well pads in the New York City and Syracuse watersheds. This is perhaps the most blatantly political section of the draft SGEIS, causing one to suspect that the entire document is similarly tainted and should be withdrawn. In protecting New York City and Syracuse's watersheds, it becomes clear that the DEC and Governor Cuomo know that drilling for shale gas is an unsafe practice in general, and therefore seek to protect the largest voting populations. This is discriminatory against all New Yorkers living outside New York City and Syracuse. I've brought pictures with me of the children of a New York City friend of mine and of my Middlefield, New York children. If this is a document based on science, I would ask that you include these pictures and attach scientific evidence explaining the differences between the New York City children and my children. And why my children's bodies are somehow better equipped to handle the exposure to the toxins from fracking. I doubt you will find any scientist who will support this, your implied claim in this section. If you have evidence that the setbacks applied to New York City and Syracuse watersheds are the safest, then they should be applied to all the watersheds in the state.
Folks, please hold your applause.
The dangerous chemicals from the drilling and fracking process are soluble and will pass right through the filters in municipal water filtration systems, like the one servicing my children's school. Governor Cuomo, my children deserve the same treatment as the children of New York City and Syracuse. Don't play politics with the public health.
Thank you. Loddie Marsh. And the next speaker will be Kim Michels.
In Sydney, the biggest threat to our water is slick water hydraulic fracturing, aka fracking, for unconventional natural gas shale. How clever of the gas industry to call it hydrofracking instead of what it really is, hydrochemical. To allow this in New York State, knowing how damaging not only to the environment, but our water is unconscionable. The destruction from fracking was obviously known and would explain the loophole exempting the gas and oil industry from the Safe Drinking Water Act, the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, the National Environmental Policy Act, the Superfund Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation and Liability Act, and the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act. The benefit of drilling will serve big business, the 1%, the gas companies. The people who want drilling want that lease, thinking they'll become shaleonaires. They are so blinded by the possible income, they can't rationalize what they will lose and what damage they will cause their neighbors by allowing gas companies on their property. Drilling companies don't have to provide any type of references, pass any courses, show any safety record, report any past violations, or be competent. How is this possible? Do not allow drilling in New York State. Companies in Pennsylvania have extracted so much gas, they have started shipping it out on its way overseas. The profit is not ours. The damage left behind is ours. Gas companies and the frackers give no thought about our clean, delicious water, of the land, of fresh air, of peace and quiet, of our community, of our livelihood, of agriculture, of wildlife, of leisurely dreams, of the night skies, of our way of life, of our dreams, of our health, of our future, of all. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Kim Michels. And the next speaker will be James Dean.
Hi, my name is Kim Michels, and I'm a landowner. My family owns 77 acres jointly, and my husband and I also have 17. Sorry. The revised draft SGEIS needs to be withdrawn as inadequate protection. The extraction of natural gas is not safe, as history has shown. Ignoring it is not going to change that. Waste disposal and earthquakes alone are two insurmountable problems. All gas drilling in New York needs to be banned. Low-volume fracking and drilling continues unabated, as do the accidents. Assemblyman Crouch's uncle in Lebanon, New York is one example of this. There was an explosion, a spill, a fire, 2 injuries, issues with soil sampling after the cleanup, and breach of the containment area, which flowed into the Lebanon Reservoir. None of this was ever reported, and the thing that really bothers me about that whole situation was I wrote him a letter before I even knew about this, and he tried to convince me that the chemicals in the fracking fluid were safe, compared it to baby diapers and toothpaste, if I remember correctly. I don't understand why the government is protecting the gas industry at our expense. The problem with the revised draft SGEIS, the main problem, is that the gas industry is essentially regulating itself. When not actually creating the laws and regulations, they are often the voice behind those who do. I go to meetings quite frequently on the local level, county level, and I've been doing a lot of reading, and I'm seeing it all the time. When these excuses for protection are too problematic, there are loopholes or they amend the laws. There are some very moral people in office doing their best to serve and protect the people. I appreciate them more than I could ever say. Sadly, their numbers have been too few, and those that try to stop the industry are often kicked to the curb, discredited. That is changing, both because the people are paying more attention, as are those in office. Accountability will be an issue. In addition, despite the massive propaganda campaign and the rounding up and brainwashing of people, like pigs to the slaughter in landowner coalitions, people are beginning to realize that they are in danger, that regulations are nothing more than a smokescreen. The horror stories from the gas fields are getting harder to hide. Hopefully, New York will not only withdraw the SGEIS as flawed, but ban the extraction of natural gas altogether, while we still have something worth saving.
Thank you. James Dean, you'll be followed by Douglas Lee.
My name is James Dean. I'm a trustee of the Village of Cooperstown.
Please speak right into the mic, sir.
I'm sorry. My name is James Dean. I'm a trustee of the Village of Cooperstown, New York. The Village of Cooperstown's Board of Trustees is extremely concerned about the negative environmental, economic, and agricultural consequences of hydrofracking on the long-term safety of our water supply and our economic future in New York State. The Village of Cooperstown is a major national and international tourist destination in the United States. It was through the writings of the world-famous novelist James Fenimore Cooper, almost 200 years ago, that many people around the world first came to know and love the lands and lakes of the Cooperstown area, New York State, and the United States of America. Cooperstown is inextricably interconnected with the overall environmental, economic, and agricultural infrastructure of the state of New York. Otsego Lake, the headwaters of the entire Susquehanna River Basin, is the source of drinking water for all of those within the Village of Cooperstown and some outside our boundaries. It is a limited, clean, natural resource that requires our highest level of attention and protection. The concerns of the Village of Cooperstown also extend beyond our own water supply and boundaries to all of New York State. Hydrofracking poses potential threats to our pristine but not unlimited water supply and the quiet, rural, farm-friendly, safe, and healthy quality of life that we now all enjoy. The Village of Cooperstown and the surrounding area has hundreds of millions of dollars of long-term investment at risk of collapse if hydrofracking comes to New York State. The economic devastation to our historic village and our world-class attractions, the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum, the Farmers Museum, the Fenimore Art Museum, the Glimmerglass Festival, the historic Otesaga Resort Hotel, Bassett Healthcare Network, and Otsego Lake would be incalculable. Our losses would far exceed, by orders of magnitude, the completely unsubstantiated potential gains put forth by the gas drilling industry and its supporters. Cooperstown does not and cannot exist on its own. We believe that hydrofracking is incompatible with a bright, clean water, high quality of life, tourist-friendly, high-tech, agricultural, and renewable energy future for upstate New York. The Board of Trustees of the Village of Cooperstown, New York unanimously supports all efforts to stop natural gas drilling and hydrofracking in New York State. Thank you.
I'd like to call the next group of speakers up, please. Could I have Al Knapp, Sherry Hart, Roy Lackner, Albert Crudo, Charlton Corey, Dr. Cris Oliver, Asher Terwilliger, Bryant Etteret, Enzo Oliveri, and Kevin Frisbee. Please come to the front row.
Douglas Lee, and you'll be followed by Marian Carle.
I'm Douglas Lee. I live deep in the Catskills in a farmhouse by a stream. I treasure my environment. I also use energy. I dream about renewables, but we all know, despite all the tax subsidies, it does not work today, not economically. I also heard about clean coal. Well, unfortunately, it's just a concept, despite all the TV ads we see. Some big-name professor actually wrote a paper saying that gas is more dirty than coal. Well, I studied it. Don't believe it. They spread a lot of misinformation about natural gas. Well, someone compiled 270 cases of suspected pollution caused by gas drilling in New York State. DEC looked at every single one of them and refuted it. Well, finally, they found one case caused by oil well, overjoyed. In Dish, Texas, they blamed pipelines for a lot of health problems. There are 2 rounds of tests done with real blood tests, and they turned out to be completely untrue. The people were healthy like average Americans. They blamed the fish kill in Dunkard Creek to Marcellus drilling, and that was actually caused by coal mining. Well, my friends, natural gas is the only clean energy solution available today. Yet, many of us do not want to see it in New York State. Why? Because it is our backyard. We fish there, we hunt there, we hike there, we take pictures there. It is our viewshed. Don't mess it up. But wait, whose backyard is this? No, it is not your backyard. Some farmer lives there. Some farmer family work there. They have the right to use the land for legitimate purpose.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Next speaker is Marian Carle, and she will be followed by Al Knapp.
My name is Marian Carle. I thank you very much for taking my comments today. All right, is that better? Okay. My name is Marian Carle, and I live in that part of the village of Cooperstown, which is also in the township of Middlefield. This is one of the 2 municipalities in our state currently being sued because it has passed an ordinance prohibiting industrial development within its boundaries. Although the revised SGEIS is improved over the 1992 GEIS and the 2009 draft, it still leaves much to be desired, and I will mention only a few of its flaws in this short time. 1, the document fails to analyze health impacts. The DEC has failed to include an analysis of public health impacts or meaningfully incorporate the Department of Health into the fracking review. There is growing evidence of negative health impacts related to gas extraction in other states, but concerns expressed by doctors and other health professionals seem to be generally ignored. 2, the document fails to undertake a cumulative impact analysis. New York State has spent a lot of time and money to develop the economy of upstate New York by attracting new high-tech industries, developing tourism, protecting agricultural and forest lands, and encouraging land use compatible with these goals. The impact of gas drilling on these investments should be analyzed. A few years ago, almost 25% of land in New York State was agricultural. That number is definitely decreased since then. But we still depend on these farms for our regional food system. Putting this farmland at risk for air, soil, and water pollution puts the entire state at risk. Fracking in New York will also seriously impact farmers' ability to sell their products, as customers from New York City and elsewhere have indicated that they would not buy products from areas where hydrofracking is in progress. The economic cost of endangering this farmland has not been factored in when promoting the benefits of gas drilling. 3, the document does not propose any new setbacks from structures. This means that a shale gas well falls under the 1992 GEIS guidelines and could be located within 150 miles from an elementary school or a hospital or 100 feet from a home. Actually, the DEC shale gas well setbacks are worse than any other state or municipality. I only have 10 more minutes, or 10 more seconds. So I would strongly urge the DEC to withdraw the proposed draft regulations. And in previous times, the DEC agent was known as a protector of New York State's environment. Sadly, that's no longer the case.
Thank you, ma'am.